What's the one book that you wish that you'd written?
Bad Atlas by David Mitchell. I really liked what he did with all the different genres, and reading that really made me think again about what a novel could be and what you could achieve with it when you start kind of bending the rules. Plus, I really love his characters and the threads of the stories that kind of carry from the beginning of the book to the end. So, yeah, if I'd written that, I'd be very, very pleased.
What's the inspiration behind your short story?
It came about in my day job. I'm a design engineer, and I work in the orthopaedic industry for some of my clients, and for one of them I was researching a particular type of neck injury, and I chanced across this story of a girl who'd been in a really bad car crash and received a very similar injury to the one I describe in my story. And I just read this article that was in a magazine, and it sort of charted the fact that she'd been without this piece of her skull for months and months, and it really sort of took root in my brain, and I thought what that must have been like for her family, and the whole process of the recovery, and the fact that she made this remarkable recovery from being in a coma for a long time, and then sort of kind of pieced her life back together. And although it was a non-fiction magazine article, it struck me that that kind of arc of injury, treatment, recovery would make a good skeleton for a novel. And it's always been a plan to write that novel someday, but for the minute, the short story is as close as I've got. So,
what made you want to start writing?
I don't know what happened at the very start, because when I was a kid at school, I always liked writing stories, and I'd make a story at any opportunity. But then that seemed to sort of drop out of education. There didn't seem to be much room for creative writing in that sense at secondary school, and then I did an engineering degree where you don't write anything creative at all. So it became a dormant urge in me, I think. And then one year when I was on holiday, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was some sort of travel writing competition that was on Radio 4, and the prize was this fantastic holiday, which the details now are pretty sketchy. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I thought I really liked the sound of that, and I thought about somewhere I'd been and tried to write it up basically, and I went way over the allowed word count, and I didn't get it in on time, but it was enough just to unlock that little kind of the urge again to write, and I immediately found that fiction was a more natural kind of setting to put that enthusiasm into, and that's where I've ended up, and that was probably about 10 to 12 years ago now, I guess, but yeah, I've been writing ever since in one form or another.
What's the best advice that you've been given or you've read about creative writing?
For me, this has come from various sources, and I think, I don't know, with something that it takes hearing it a few times to actually believe it. And for me, it was a case of finding out that the first draft is allowed to be rubbish. As long as it's finished, then you can start editing. I was very easily discouraged, I think, when I started writing, and if the first few paragraphs weren't right, I'd go back and change them, and then go back and change them again, and then try beginning the story a different way, and it basically meant that I never finished anything, and that was again sort of discouraging in another way. So now that I know it doesn't matter if the first draft is a mess, if I change a character's name halfway through or something like that, I'm happy to let that slide and get to the end, and then sort of it comes back to that phrase, writing is rewriting, and you can't edit a blank page. So if you can plough on through and get to the end, you're in a far better position than just trying to get that opening perfect. So I think that's been the thing that's made me a lot more productive.